Osio, Aja di Katoga Doado. Hello, my name is Fishtail. In honor of Mental Health Awareness Month, I would like to tell my own story of my struggles with severe mental illness. I tend to go off on tangents, so I will read most of what I'll say. This is my story. Content warning: the video is designed to give an honest, real look at my struggles with severe mental illness, to show what it looks like and how it affects my life. Some images and descriptions of my struggles with self harm may be triggering. Please, if you or someone you know is struggling or in crisis, help is available. Call or text 988 or open a chat at 988lifeline.org or the equivalent crisis hotline in your country. Several years ago, I went to a diabetes appointment in the spring, and the physician's assistant noticed I was not caring much about my treatment. She administered a depression screening test, which indicated I was in a severe depressive state. She prescribed an antidepressant, and I took it for several months. Starting that fall, I started to have what I thought at the time were premonitions. I thought that my wife would die and that I would marry someone else I knew. I also felt very strongly that I could not tell anyone about this. This anxiety of knowing this, but I couldn't tell anyone, built over the next couple of months. Finally, at the beginning of the next year, I broke down and stopped taking all of my medications overnight. My wife convinced me that I should call and set up an appointment with the behavioral psychologist that the diabetes clinic had recommended. After a couple of days without the SSRI, the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, I started to have convulsions. When I fell to the kitchen floor, my wife finally was able to do something about it without my permission. She called the emergency services. In the US, 911. Also, in the US, you can't force somebody to take care of themselves unless they're a danger to themselves or a danger to others. I was taken to the hospital in an ambulance. And because I had my first appointment with a psychologist a few days later, and the experience of going to the hospital had really shocked me into taking my medication again, they let me go home. After a couple of months of therapy with my psychologist, he noticed that there was more stuff going on than just a severe bout of depression. He encouraged me to go to a psychiatrist to get an official mental health diagnosis. In the US, only psychiatrists can diagnose and prescribe medication to treat mental illness. In the process of changing medications with a psychiatrist to find some combination that works for me, and in the middle of that further evaluation, the diagnosis process, I had a severe case of suicide ideation. And I started planning for it. I told my wife as she drove me to the hospital to be ready to grab me if I decided to open up the door and jump out. I was admitted to the psych ward this time. I stayed for 4 days, as the in-house psychiatrist, adjusted my medication until we got something that worked with me. So my eventual diagnosis, or my current diagnosis, is severe atypical obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD, major depressive disorder, MDD, and addiction issues, specifically addiction to pornography. My OCD looked like manic episodes, and my compulsions were often mental. Okay. Let me explain more about OCD, my major diagnosis. OCD is characterized by a junk thought. That junk thought triggers the obsessive mode of OCD. This junk thought isn't true, but the OCD mind cannot just throw it out. We usually know that the thought is just junk, but we cannot stop thinking it. Thinking this junk thought causes anxiety. Something you just see over and over and over. For example, if with my fingertip I touch an unpainted wood surface that has been exposed to the weather and has a little bit of dirt on it, entire hand up to the wrist feels like it's covered in a thin layer of mud. I know my hand is not any more dirty than I touched anything else outside, but my mind is yelling at me, get it off, get it off, get it off, get it off. The anxiety of an obsessive thought leads to an activity to lessen the anxiety. This is called the compulsion. The compulsion is repeated as many times as needed to get rid of the anxiety. For example, I can rinse my hand once in clean water, culinary water, to get rid of that feeling of having a muddy hand. However, I can also rub the fingertip on my clothes to brush off the dirt. However, it doesn't take just one time. It takes multiple times. If I brush twice in the same spot, that place is contaminated in my mind, and I have to find another spot to rub. And usually about 4 or 5 times of rubbing is enough to remove the anxiety. Now, this example is mild. Mental illness is not diagnosed as mental illness unless it prevents or hinders your everyday life. Another of my OCD triggers is hair that's no longer attached. I cannot go to a barber to get my hair cut without shirt, full-length pants, socks, and shoes. The short sleeve shirt is okay. Another issue is that because of leftover hair, I get so anxious. And the thing about the thought about getting dirty or getting hair on me is that I can't step into a shower or get into a bathtub unless I'm fully clothed, including socks and shoes. Getting that hair on me is just, you're going to get it on you, going to get it on you. And my thing is, okay, I won't. I won't take a shower. This one is severe. As a result, I've taken only 4 showers in the last 5 or 6 months. With this one, genetics helps keep others from noticing. I am Cherokee, and I'm fortunate to have inherited the ATP binding cassette subfamily C member 11 gene, also known as the ABCC11 gene. This prevents me from developing body odor, so others can't really tell that I haven't showered. Another OCD trigger is bumps on my skin. I have to get the skin smooth. That's the junk thought. And so I start picking at it with my fingernail, over and over until they bleed. And then the scabs aren't flush with my skin, so I pick the scabs off over and over again until finally scar tissue makes the skin smooth again. Trigger warning. I'm going to briefly show a photo about this, and so close your eyes if you don't want to see it. Here is a photo of 2 places I was picking on the same arm at the same time. You can see that a casual observer might not notice that I'm having trouble picking scabs off. But during my compulsion phase, where I really have to dig at it, these often drip blood off my arm before I can stop. The photo is now gone, so you can open your eyes again. It's not all doom and gloom, though. Help is available. I got help. I'm living a successful life. My wife is still with me. We just celebrated our 31st anniversary. We have 3 kids, 2 cats, and a puppy. I'm also employed at a wonderful company with awesome people. I got help. You can get help too. There were 3 major things that helped me come out of my severe low point. They were: 1, most important, I found mental health professionals that I could relate to and work with. My psychologist was a cognitive behavioral psychologist, cognitive behavioral therapist. He specialized in teaching patients how to recognize and change behavior. I consider myself a difficult patient because I didn't take his word for things. He really had to go back to the theory of cognition, quote studies to me, and explain things in a very specific way, building block by building block. I just have an analytical mind. He also is on the music faculty at the nationally recognized university near us, teaching a class on how to overcome stage fright. This musical background helped me have common ground with him. It built trust in me. He worked with me to recognize the steps leading up to a crisis and develop a plan to mitigate that escalation so I could stop it before it ever led to a crisis. He helped me develop tools to evaluate and mitigate these escalations. For instance, there's a list of questions to ask to see if you're running under a cognitive distortion. Are you predicting the future? Are you using all or nothing thinking? There were about 12 questions like that. It didn't work all the time. I still did have crises. But evaluation after each crisis with my psychologist helped me develop a better and better plan. One of the most poignant things that my psychologist asked me was, you have diabetes and you have a plan to manage that. What is your plan to manage your mental illness? Wait a minute. I can have a plan? Huh. My psychologist also asked a weird question. If you somehow had the choice before you were born of which major challenges you would have in life, and you chose diabetes and severe mental illness, how would that knowledge change the way that you approach managing these illnesses? This one took me back. What if I signed up for these challenges? Well, I guess I would thought that I could handle them. I suddenly changed from a victim mindset to a fighter mindset. So I guess I should get down to the business of making plans and contingency plans for when, not if, but when they fail the initial. Second, human connection. Unfortunately, there is still a shame culture around mental illness. So dealing with an event is isolating. No one thinks you should be ashamed if you have a low glucose event. They may even ask how they can help. But your CGM goes off and is it? Oh, wait. But if you're getting anxious about deadline coming up and you suddenly shut down all communication, can't focus on work, bow your head, start rocking back and forth. People don't ask how they can help. They just look at you weird, walk away. Weird is an appropriate word here. Because weirdly, if they did stop to talk, they could help you out of this event. Conversations about anything other than my obsessive thoughts would help pull me out of a funk. My interactions would start with one word replies. Yes. No. I don't know. But would gradually, slowly progress to engaged conversation. When at work, a coworker could talk about my barbershop quartet was doing, writing secure software, one of my passions, or riding motorcycles. It would probably initially elicit one word responses, but if they continued talking, I would gradually come out of it. They could talk about anything other than work deadlines. And the reason why I went into the anxiety event. Also, touch on my shoulder. Hug. Even if I don't hug back, hug. Sitting near somebody. Even if it's a ride in a car. Having time elapse with no conversation at all can help me go from non-communicative to the one-word conversation state. 3. For me, sleep. That was one of the things that we were trying to figure out with the medication. I need a full 8 hours sleep a night, preferably more, so that I can have a healthy mental state. I have medications to fall asleep, medications to stay asleep. I hope you learned more about mental illness, what it looks like, and maybe how you can help someone who's dealing with it. Please, if you or someone you know is having struggles or in crisis, help is available. Call or text 988 or open a chat at 988lifeline.org or the equivalent crisis hotline in your country. I'm Fishtail. Cherokee, there is no word for goodbye. So we say thank you. Wado.